Jolene was there, but she's disappeared.
Oh, she's in the...
She was there literally.
Thomas, if you want to come up to the table and join us.
Yeah, come up to the table.
Introduced Thomas Petrie, who's just joined us as a project manager for Hotspots work. Jolene, I think, is going to come and join him as well. And those two will run you through a very quick summary of the report, and then we're happy to take any questions.
This was one of my ads on Facebook.
So I've started in early May.
Sorry, who are you?
Thomas Petrie. I've taken over from Te Kaha as the Environmental Hotspots Project Manager. That's focused on Lake Tutera hotspot with the FIA fund and Ahuriri estuary. And taking over that role, there has been a little bit of a transitional period from when TK had departed Regional Council, and since then I've taken that time to come up to speed with where the project was currently sitting and what the deliverables are, particularly with a focus on Tutera, as we have a time frame around the FIF funding, and held the first governance group meeting up in Tutera to provide updates back to that group, and set the budget for the coming year. There has been some slow progress over the last 8 months with that project. It's taken me a little bit of time to feel out the personalities of the community up there, the history associated with the project. But I feel we're now moving forward with MFE. The budget for the coming year has been set at 1.5 million on the deliverables. And we have a meeting in 2 weeks' time with the governance group to present the new plans for the sediment traps to be installed. And we are progressing with talks with the northern landowners about the reconnection of Papakiri Stream. And that's quite a key part to this project. We've also had the draft catchment management plan, which is a community-led document. That's been finalised by the governance group, and we're in the process of putting together a summarised version of that document that'll be presented in 2 weeks to the governance group for acceptance, and then taken back to the community up at Tutera School 2 weeks after that. So that is there for them to drive. Works around Lake Tutera's enhancement after the FIF project. So that's sort of the guiding document for MTT and the community to push forward. Before I move on to Ahuriri, I think we've got some questions directly around the Tutera project. And with the Ahuriri hotspot, we have just completed a large removal program of Whakapumaris, the invasive tobloom. This has been set up slightly differently to the past. With the works group involved, it has become more mechanical to involve the manual labour associated with it. So there's a floating pontoon that has been built, and that's rigged up either side of the estuary so it can be moved back and forth. With the excavator is on platforms out there to try and limit the impact and get the larger volume of removal that we were hoping for. So in the last 2 weeks, what had previously taken us 4 days with 15 people and spades, we removed in 8 hours. So we're getting 4 or 5 times the output there. And it's allowing us to remove full bands across the estuary, so to see what the impact on the hydrology there will be. And to start looking at what its repopulation timeframes would be like. Obviously the Whakapumaris is a big problem, not just in the estuary, but some of the other tributaries and the Clive River. So this information will start feeding back into what could turn into a bigger program of removal. But we need to see what its reinvasion timeline is like as well. At present, manual removal is really the only way of control that we have. given the sensitivity of the environment, there's no chemical controls that could be used. There's been a really great uptake in
Apologies.
Your shout. You'll go ahead, take the tab at the bar after the meeting.
There's been a great uptake in the catchment, the farming community around the Ahuriri estuary, and we've been pushing through a large percentage of fencing, pole planting, erosion control works, riparian planting. That's increased from last year, and we'll be looking at the same volume again this year. So I think we're starting to see now the keenness of the farmers is actually helping bring in other landowners just through their own interactions outside of engagement with council. They're coming to us, which is great. Further to that, there has been some additional work around, in conjunction with DOC, around the bittern habitat. And while also I think part of the hotspot funding is tied in with the Hohepa restoration works as well, which is a separate project. There has been conversations now around internally looking at just sort of compiling a bigger volume of work. What are we doing in Ahuriri across the organisation? And it's expected that volume of work will hopefully grow and be driven hopefully by Te Committee, but I'm yet to meet all of them. But that's where Ahuriri is at the moment. Anna is focusing on the marine science part of it, but she's not here.
So, any, Councillor
Thank you, Chair. No, thank you for that report, Thomas. You mentioned here with the estuary that there's been about 15,000 native plants put in this winter. Is that on private land, not somewhere around the estuary itself, or?
Yeah, that's on private land. It's catchment land feeding into the estuary.
Excellent, thank you.
That's great.
Talk about biome.
Well, just to update on that, we ought to get together because we've probably put 15,000 in ourselves on that lower typo stream. So I'll be hoping that we can count those as part of the project.
Yeah. It's great. Yeah, but we expect that the riparian plantings and pole planting aspect of the Ahuriri work there will stay at that number again next year, if not increase. It seems like there's a really great take up. They have, as part of that work, it's actually been discovered that the sole remnant native forest spot within the catchment has been found on one of these properties as well, which is really key for Ahuriri. It's the only place identified with a good source for eco-source seeds of remnant vegetation. Excellent. So that's a bit of an additional win that's come along for the biodiversity side of things. That's just happened through getting on some of these farms and having people on the ground talking to landowners and finding out what's there.
Was it already fenced?
Partly, but it is fenced completely now, and additional works are going on in there for weed control, and we've got people out there, through Murray Taylor and Plant Hawke's Bay, collecting seed and propagating plants that then can be put back into the catchment as well. So to find that is just something extra, really.
Any other questions, comments? Right. Someone care to move receiving the report?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just before you do, I thought you were doing segment by segment, but I just want to go to the marine hotspot and just ask a question about coordinating the various sources of knowledge and stakeholders in the marine environment and how we're looking to bring that together. I did have a chat to Ian this morning about this sort of stuff. Can you just give us an update on that and what our plans are to develop that further? Ian might be able to.
Yeah, so happy to answer that, Councillor. So effectively that's being done through our Hawkesbury Marine and Coast Group that we set up 4 years ago or so now with Ollie Wade, the previous coastal scientist, which involves a collaborative group of commercial recreational fishers, customary fishing interests, MPI, Department of Conservation, ourselves, and I'm missing some folk I know off the top of my head. I can't recall who they are. And you'll recall that that group developed a roadmap and a strategy for marine science and research that they're now in the implementation stages of, turning that roadmap and plan into action. The group had a little bit of a hiatus with the departure of Ollie Wade from us to Marlborough, take on a new job, but we've recently taken on a new coastal scientist, Becky, who's pulled that group together, and they had a meeting only just a week or two ago to start getting this back on track and back into shape. One of the challenges that you and I have discussed and shared is that there are other pots of money available for marine research across New Zealand. MPI fisheries obviously have a reasonably large chunk of money relative to ours. Not a lot of that is brought to the region at the moment, but we're actively looking to encourage them to bring that to the region and invest in our research. And the other area that's quite exciting at the moment that's being rapidly developed and has got huge potential is the Science Challenge, Sustainable Seas Science Challenge, being led by Dr. Julie Hall from NIWA. We've had a number of sessions with the Science Challenge people in Hawke's Bay, particularly focused on what we call an ecosystem-based management approach, and them bringing their research tools and investment to the region to invest in our area and start to understand what's driving our coastal issues. So there's quite a collaborative approach, and money's starting to move, just not fast enough, but I'm sure that it will happen in time.
Happy to move, Mr. Chair.
You happy to move? Seconder? Yeah.
Any further discussion? I would like a steer on this. We've been asking for this report for 2 years now, I guess.
Since you started it. Yep.
And if you recall, I mean, some of the presentations have been quite elaborate, with each of these projects having slide presentations and so forth. And it's been condensing down, and we went through a phase where we picked one and presented that in more detail, and then just covered off the rest. Now we have an abbreviated report on this. Is this something that people want to hear about in this meeting at this point, or is this becoming routine business, or what's your steer?
I'm thinking more about writing the legacy and protecting the public image. And I thought the reports we had before, which are a bit more detailed with pictures and so on, pre-planting, planting and so on, was a wonderful example of the work the council is doing that doesn't get out there as often enough. So I would like the report to be, beefed up a bit more and to be used as a window that we can project to the community.
Just before the next election?
He's very worried about his future, you can see that. But I just think it's great work, and we tell the public we do a good job, but we need to show we do a good job. And I thought this Hotspots was a great idea. It's made very good progress. I just think it's one way of telling our story again. And if we don't write the story ourselves, no one else is going to write it. So we need to write our story.
Arguably, we have other similar kinds of activities going on.
But for the same reason, I like that as well. We don't have to dwell lengthily on here, but I'm sure the staff can pull together some pictures and a few other things and fill out the report. And when we do it, we then just up on the website. People come and investigate what we're doing. Here's examples of it. We've written our history. That's what I see this as.
Any other views on it?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with Councillor Barker, because we deliberately went out in the first annual plan round of this term of council and got the funding for the hotspots. So I think it behoves us to keep the public informed exactly where we're up to on these things. So aside from having this report regularly at this Environment and Services Committee meeting, I think on occasion we should also have have a highlighted with a bit more sexied up a wee bit as to exactly what's been achieved. So I would think something like on an annual basis or something like that. I don't know.
All right. I'm sorry.
Just from the viewpoint of Lake Hartuma, I think that well said is nowhere near as good as well done, and this report has consistently highlighted no activity. I think that getting the money there is one thing, but it would be far more valuable to have on staff member overseeing the project work there as well, or lack thereof, because it should have been a lot of money going into there in the last 3 years, and there hasn't been.
So what is the meaning of number 34 here on this report?
Oh, that was post the public excluded session we had around potential acquisition of the lake. So those discussions or negotiations are continuing, and we're looking for options.
Are they?
Yep. Yep. So look, there's 1,000 ways you could cut and dice this, and we're looking to explore all of those options.
So are you optimistic about this, or cautiously optimistic, or?
I like to always try and remain optimistic, otherwise you'd give up. Look, we've got some headwinds, is the reality with the project, but there are things we can explore, and we are continuing to. You'll probably have to drag me kicking and screaming away from it rather than me giving up on it, I suspect, but we'll see.
Well, Mr. Chair, just following on in terms of the presentation, yes, it is good to have the condensed version going on, but totally agree that there are some excellent stories amongst it. For example, the pontoon digging whakapamatas out of the water would be brilliant. And I've got a question: have we got a drone, and have our people got working that technology? I must compliment whoever's doing it, but putting the little spots in the various social media and on mainstream media. I think we had the other one of oil going down the drain recently. So if we can somehow infuse our message, whether it's a video clip, etc., Facebook, Instagram, wherever, these are excellent stories to tell, and I'm sure we'll get much big socialisation if we focus on a market for it.
Drew isn't here, but does somebody here know what our arrangement is if we want to shoot video on something like this? You're going out and you're pulling weeds out of the area, or do we have somebody on call? Do we have any kind of a...
So we've got the capacity and staff, so our digital comms, our comms team have got digital media people that can do that. We've got a number of drones, so we do have the technology, and we can, all of those YouTube videos that you see have been produced in-house using, well, look, your iPhone is as good as any video device you can buy now, just about. So we're taking a kind of a very basic approach with high impact, and it's working.
Yeah.
Somebody,
I think there's already moved.
Mover and a seconder over here? Or?
Yeah.
Any further comments?
Well, I'd just like to make one further comment if I could. I think what we're trying to do is to change behaviour, and the only change behaviour if people see the examples and see what has been done. And the story you've given about the fencing, the planting and so on is a great story. The more we tell these things, the more it becomes accepted as a norm, and so then becomes that people who don't do it are the exceptions. But they're only going to feel the exceptions if they know what's happening around them. So we have to tell a story, and that's what I'd like to see this do a little more on that. So story after story on that. Wonderful stuff. Just keep doing it. Thank you.
And just adding on to what Councillor Barker said there, you know, we hear poor old cockies get on the bloody neck all the time, it seems like, but when they're doing something great, which is what has been happening in Ahuriri, and Tutera, we need to pump those messages out as well, because it not only takes the pressure off them a wee bit, but also demonstrates to everyone else in our region that they're not the only ones doing some good stuff. So.
put the question to receive the report. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So we're on to minor items. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I lost my page. Tomato mushrooms was...
Yep. Thank you, Chair. Had a call from a concerned member of the public yesterday who has been attending the tomato mushrooms consent hearings over in Hastings and raised the question to me. There was an issue that the panel had asked our staff with respects to the recording of complaints to the 0800 pollution line, and it appears that some of the complaints that have been received in this by us had not actually been recorded by us. I just want to have the assurance from staff that every call that comes into the pollution 0800 hotline has actually been recorded and noted, even though it may not be actioned for one reason or another.
I would be very surprised if that's not the case. It certainly was the practice historically, but we'll get clarification of that and come back to you.
That would be great. Thanks.
Probably half of them from me anyway.
Question, when it said recorded, does it actually mean a complete record, a tape recording of it? Because that, or does it mean a noting of the call?
Noting of the call.
I just want to be clear on that. I'm not having ours automatically record people's conversations.
No, it was a spreadsheet that just recorded any pollution complaint.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would understand if you had a 20 people making a complaint about one issue, you'd just be doing 20, give a number 20, but I just want to make sure that every number is counted, that's all.
Locked.
I received a similar call, perhaps from the same individual, saying more specifically that we were called to task by the hearings officers that because somebody from HBRC acknowledged that we made a specific decision to not take complaints on this particular issue for some period of time, and that's what was sent to the hearings officers who were upset by that revelation. Need to find out.
So I'll get Liz to clarify that for us.
Wairo Park.
Oh yeah, as everyone knows, we've been interested in doing a regional park in Wairo for some time, from the lighthouse to the ocean. And in fact, there was a draft plan some years ago done, which has been tabled again. The people of Wairo, especially the Wairo Council, are really enthusiastic about this. So are the treaty group, Tautau Wairo. They want a regional park on both sides of the river, all the way to the ocean. So I think our staff are now looking at that, but certainly some conceptual plans will be put in place pretty soon, and it'd be a pretty exciting thing to do because there's wetlands and there's all sorts of things there.
Just as an update, Rex, we've provided a concept for that northern side already.
Oh, excellent.
Northern side?
Yeah.
So it's up to Wairo to decide how they might want to deal with that, but we've got a concept.
Yeah, excellent.
Forward for both sides.
Peter,
Can I see that?
Yeah.
Can I see that?
Yeah, I'd like to see
out of the
that
loop
too.
here.
No, it's confidential.
To me and
Security
Hotspots Chair, as everyone around this table knows, I've expressed my concerns about the encroachment of urban dwellings into high-value land over a period of time. Correct me if I'm wrong, but HPUD's now, I think the task of calling meetings sits with Hastings District Council, and I think it might be maybe 12 months since we've had a meeting. It's certainly a very long time, and I'm on a pretty short time frame now to participate, and I'd like to see one more meeting called before this triennium finishes. It's almost become a joint committee that's fallen into abeyance, and that's not good enough. There are some serious issues.
If you meet, you might have to consider some issues and make some statements.
I'll get the policy staff to check on that and come back to you.
Okay. So that completes our agenda for public sessions. Would someone like to move us into public excluded?
I will. Second.
All those in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.